I'm passionate about what I do, definitely passionate, and I want to impact upon kids' lives. Also, I see education moving in the wrong direction in a lot of aspects, and yeah.
Oh, have I had a journey?
I don't know, maybe I'm not cut out for this. I'm not experienced enough, but then I like the idea of being in the leadership team. I liked the idea of having a say in how the school would operate. And I like the acknowledgement as well.
I kind of knew in my head that I wouldn't be teaching for years and years and years before stopping. But in my head too, at that time, it would have been nice to secure that ongoing position before I left. But it turns out I'm happy anyway doing what I'm doing now. So,
I felt so stuck. That was really, that last year was really tough for me. I was on the verge of having a breakdown a few times that year because I was just so frustrated.
You know, why am I doing this?
How did I survive this? How does anyone walk into this and then be like, yeah, I want to keep teaching for the next 12 years?
I wasn't challenging myself and I was complaining about everything. You hear yourself like everything's bad, everything's hard, and nothing's your fault. And that's absolutely the mindset that I was in.
We teach kids that have got extremely high emotional needs. And I had this just last week. His phone went off in class. I didn't even say anything. I didn't raise my voice. I wasn't upset it went off. So I just looked in his direction and I think I just said something like, okay, so you know what the policy is. And he fully stormed out of class, slammed the door on his way out, and I'm like, how is this still happening? Like, this isn't a thing that happens. But I would say I've had a very low frequency of things like that happening. I think I create a much calmer classroom. I think probably in my early years, you've just, in survival mode. So a lot of the time you're just reacting like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen.
We employ a full-time CRT. Normally it's a graduate role. And seeing them with the students, I think that was me. And we've got it documented. Oh, that's so funny.
So it was my 5th year when I decided I wanted to leave my first school because, well, I was starting to feel really disillusioned by it all and I was ready to leave. That was probably one of the best decisions I had ever made, was to move schools.
I didn't think I would come back to it, and it became something that gave me a bit of function and purpose. And so I kind of got lured back into teaching at this point. But now I go in with more proactive measures. Straighten all the tables first, have a seating plan. You're going to sit here, you're going to be doing this and that, and all the things set up in place. If you're a bit more prepared that things generally don't go down that path, but even when that kid responded like that, it wasn't normal. I probably would have been quite panicked in my early years.
But also it made me a little bit more, more resilient, maybe. I don't know. It made me realise I can actually go elsewhere for support.
Looking back now, I think it's more playing that long game. Understanding that it is a process. You could really feel overwhelmed with it all. If you intend in being in teaching for a long time, it's as much as it's a passion. I think it's so important that you keep those external activities that keep you human, because you can very easily morph into that teacher that no one wants to have and no one wants to be.
the principal was very supportive of me going off and trying new things. So early on in 2018, while still finding myself and trying to work out what I wanted to do with my life, I applied for a year leave without pay for 2019. Now, I don't know if it was because the light was at the end of the tunnel, but 2018 turned out to be one of the best years of my life and career. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, well, obviously there were some ups and downs, but I remember far more ups.
Now I'm trying to work out what I want to do with my life. So I love working in a school. I love working with kids. So I have to remind myself, this is what I love doing, and I guess this is what my purpose is. I'll get back at some stage.
After doing 2 years of coordination, I dropped to 0.8, which I've maintained since, which I'm really enjoying. I found that actually, for me personally, that's actually a really good balance of work and not work.
Oh, yes. I was really happy about getting that position, that family leave. Even though it's not a guaranteed 7 years, it's something a bit more permanent and secure than, for 6 months or to a couple of years. Because normally when people go on maternity leave, it's longer than 6 months. So yeah, I was really happy. But then I remember toward the end of my 3rd year, I did go for an ongoing position. I was up against a few people. Sadly, I didn't get it, which was a shame. But I was going off and going to have a baby anyway, so...
At the end of my 2nd year, the principal said I've got one position and both of you can apply for it. It was me and this other teacher. We started at the exact same time, did the exact same course, the exact same subjects, and I was like, oh shit, that's not good. So I didn't want to do it because you already know who's in the box seat.
And I was thinking, you're getting more confident, but then sometimes that confidence was completely misplaced. And I actually wasn't as confident as what I thought.
But I applied. I didn't get the job.
There are so many more people out there that are more experienced than me.
And at that point, I planned to leave teaching. I was like, I'm done. I thought I'd have a bit of a break from it.
I'm not experienced enough.
And then a month later, a teacher got a job at another school and I was given an ongoing position with like a condition which was to be the Year 7 coordinator, which I was very unhappy about.
I was at my first school for 3 years, and I think the first 2 years I was like graduate classroom teacher, both of those years. And then in the 3rd year I took on a student leadership role, and I was a bit worn out after those 3 years. I was trying to kind of rethink and reinvent myself a little bit because I just felt so burnt out. That was a pretty full-on 3 years.
It was hard because I was doing my best.
It was shocking. Because of my school, coordinator positions are not fought over or a desirable position. It's kind of like a tap on the shoulder, or you're kind of forced to do it. So it's pretty shitty because I was kind of like, I was 3 years in and I was just kind of starting to take off. Like, they were interesting years. I learnt a lot, but I feel like my progression with my past teaching was hit pretty hard by that, because I found year level coordination took up all my time.
Boys. Oh, yeah, I remember those boys. They'd stand on the chairs, stand on the boxes, push the boxes at each other. Oh. I find it interesting that work is such a big word. Like, maybe I shouldn't, but I think of it as a negative connotation. Hard work.
Well, I know as a teacher, and teaching is really big. School, that's really interesting. Kids get a bit more dominant. Wow, yeah, it looks like it's focused on teaching and being in the classroom. Quite interesting. I think this is why, I speak about these were nice years. I feel like I was so invested in the classroom and teaching and actually having a really good time and actually, hopefully, doing a good job. And I feel like now, looking at this, the actual classroom teaching feels like the smallest part of my job now. It's like it's a real shame. I like looking at this. It's clearly focused on the job. Whereas now it's like, I don't know, if you ask me now, it would be like documented curriculum or NAPLAN instructional model.
I definitely see curriculum and planning. Planning is important.
I understand there's a curriculum to be taught, but I don't necessarily think everyone needs to be going about it the same way.
But I'm sure from that, I did a lot of growing.
This was the year that I would say was probably my worst year of teaching. And if I had experienced this in my first year, I wouldn't have continued teaching. But I knew that was part of teaching, that it wasn't always going to be like this.
It's interesting to see that it's nice I quite like looking at that. So I see that quite warmly.
But also, I think circling back to that work-life balance.
I haven't really stopped yoga and meditation throughout the past 10 years, but I definitely had periods of... I felt like my first 4 years I was on a really nice trajectory, but a few things happened in my life, and I found that rather than continuing, I plateaued for a bit with my practices for a 2 or 3 year period. Lately, I've been trying to spend a bit more time with that stuff because I noticed in myself, when I'm not doing it, I feel like things fall apart or things get more difficult, or at least seem more difficult. And when I'm in a better, calmer state, everything seems better at work and in my life around me. I don't know how it works, but yeah.
I do think what's changed, more thinking about me and seeing friends, making time to chill out and all that mindfulness stuff. Walk my dog in the park. Every morning get up and go for a walk on the beach because I really need to be by the ocean. It's made a huge difference on my mental health.
I just felt a lot more relaxed, less stressed, and it made me feel like I was enjoying teaching again.
So I felt like I was flying. I felt like I was on top of everything. Like, there were bad days in that, but it was actually just great. I loved it. So I'd still say they were my best years, the first 3. I feel a lot more restricted now.
I stay in it for the students. There's honestly never another answer for me. I turn up and do what I do 100% for my students. I hate to take a day off and not spend a lesson with them. I'd feel guilty if I wasn't there.
When you first start teaching, you don't want to take a day off, you don't want to leave early, you just don't know how that's going to look.
I turn up and I do it for them. Like our English team, we go out for drinks and we've kind of got a real identity and we're quite connected, so that's really nice.
I'm around people that I love and that are supportive, and I really like this year level.
What were the highlights?
Oh, easy, regardless of coordination. It's just like the first 3 years, I wasn't reckless, but I just felt like I had total freedom. I was fearless in what I taught, and it was really enjoyable. And it was also nice being like, now that I can reflect back on it, how was nice being the new teacher? I could see it was kind of popular back then with the students, which is definitely like, yeah, now it's not the same.
I used to think that staying in school a long time was a really valuable thing, but I think that was just the modelling I had. Now, I say that the length of time you stay at school is no reflection on where you're at. Are you still a good teacher? Are you still learning? Are you still growing? How are you helping the kids? What's your attitude?
Yeah, 100%, it's the students for me.